All right, welcome to the podcast.
It's great to be here.
Absolutely.
Brother.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
Back from the tennis days.
Absolutely. So, earliest childhood memories. What are we getting into?
Definitely was bit by the travel bug early.
Okay.
I'm an only child.
Yeah.
Small family.
Mhm.
My mom's from Budapest, Hungary.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. My dad's from Los Angeles. So the earliest childhood memory I have was the Frankfurt airport traveling to Budapest when I was 3.
That's
Yeah.
unbelievable. I
Yeah.
thought you were like, oh, I got the traveling bug early. I thought you were going to say like middle school.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, early on. That's
Yeah.
wild
Yeah.
that you remember that.
Absolutely.
So, traveling, was it an enjoyable experience for you?
I had an amazing childhood.
Okay.
And some people were envious about the way I got to see the world. But
Mhm.
I multicultural family.
Yeah.
Again, I fell in love with Hungary at a very early age, and I felt a lot of love, and we showed love through travel, and just the best family unit ever.
So, Budapest, what are we looking at as far as, is that where family is? Is like what are we going back there for?
Oh, my mom was born and raised in Budapest in 1952. In 1956, the Russians came in, took over the country, and in the early 70s, she escaped, looking for a better life, a better world. So family. So it was her sisters, my aunt, my two uncles, and extended family and cousins.
Yeah.
So unlike doing a traditional Christmas every year,
right,
that would be. And then back then you didn't have Skype and all that, so
right.
You had to be there. So, I was sitting around the table with I didn't know the language that well, my dad, and so a lot of just sitting and nodding and laughing.
Okay.
But they made you feel one of us.
Okay.
And that was really, that is part of the fabric of my life.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at what age were you going back every year? Were you going back like a couple times a year? How often would you go?
Probably every couple of years. So
okay.
When I was 3, when I was 5, later in grade school years. And then, first memories was climbing up the steps at the Basilica in Budapest, climbing up the Fisherman's Bastion, which is called, I forget what the Hungarian word for it is. Now that I'm on a podcast, I forget. But it was seeing the historical. It's one of the most beautiful cities in the world, and I got to see it as a little kid growing up at different stages. Beautiful.
So at a young age, did you find the beauty in things? Were you more like, when I was younger, when we traveled, I felt like I was always being dragged around to like, hey, look at this. And I was like, what are we doing here? Like,
what are we doing?
Yeah, come on. Yeah. But did you feel, and did you feel differently towards it? Did you see like, hey, this is beautiful? Or like, what was your thoughts about it as a young kid?
Yeah, I was very like, I knew how to tell time when I was 3 on Roman numerals. So a lot of clocks are like that in Hungary. I remember at the hotel we stayed at when I was 3, I was able to tell time.
Wow.
Like the Roman numeral for 10 and 12. So I guess since I was an only child, I was brought up just being as brilliantly in a prodigy level. Yeah. And just being a brilliant mind. So I took a lot of appreciation. And my only in the beginning, my only outlet to the world was, the outlet with my parents and my dog then. So it was really, I appreciated everything. I felt a lot of love. Strict childhood growing up, but really, every little thing was an absolute adventure. I would get so excited going on flights and trips that I would get sick the night before. Yeah. Anxiety, that's how excited you were. Of happy anxiety.
Yeah. That's fantastic because you're about to have such a good time. Yeah. So when you were home, were you envious and you wanted to be somewhere else, or were you still able to also enjoy home life as well?
Yeah, I think we're really starting from the beginning here.
We're
starting from birth. I think we had a good group on the street that I grew up on. Memories of frisbee and football and basketball. My dad teaching me how to throw the football, every different sport, tennis. So absolutely, very much so. I really loved and was happy with everything growing up. Yeah.
So let's go elementary school. Were you more so focused on school, sports, after school activities? What was going on there?
Elementary school was interesting. it took me until third grade to find a teacher that really accepted me for who I was.
Okay.
My second grade teacher, Mrs. Boehm, who rest in peace.
Okay.
She said, and my first grade teacher, that I was really nice kid, very talented and all that, but AJ's going nowhere in life.
They said that in second grade?
Yeah, they said it in parent-teacher conferences. Talk about some child drama.
Just throwing all the shade.
Yeah, it was, Emmanuel Lutheran preschool was great. They love me. I'm going to be like the next Bill Gates. But then you get into first grade, Hazeman,
it's all over.
They tear you apart. I don't know how these, teachers are the best things in the world, but man, Miss Lehman and Mrs. Boehm, yeah.
Did they have reasons? Were you eating a lot of chalk? Like maybe I was gluing my hands together with glue.
That's what I heard your first memory. That was a light bulb memory here for you.
Yeah. So like, did you give them any reason to think that you weren't going anywhere? Or?
No, I think the only thing that in first grade I hated movies that I deemed were scary movies.
Okay. Yeah.
Like I remember Robin Williams in what movie was that? Jumanji.
Okay.
Scared the hell out of me.
Okay.
So I would just leave the class, go to the bathroom, and just walk the halls just to wait for the movie to end.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. But second grade,
it's so early to determine. So fun.
It's so get down to the core of the human being.
Yeah.
First. We're 7. What are we doing?
Well, it's funny because I see my mom a lot now, and I ask her a lot of questions about my childhood. I'm like, was there any like worry when I was a kid or something like that? Because our daughter, she fell asleep on the way to my mom's house yesterday, and it was really cold, and she missed her nap. So we were letting her sleep in the car, and my wife was out there with her. So I'm like, Mom, was there any like times that like you let me just sleep in the car or anything like that? And she's like, well, there was one time that like I pulled the car in the garage, and then like I turned it off, went inside just to get some stuff done, and this was one of the only times I was worried about you as far as like IQ or smarts went.
Yeah.
I came in, I went inside the garage and I saw that you were awake, and I asked, why didn't you get out? And you said, I didn't know how to. Yeah. And it was like, I wasn't in like a booster seat or anything like that. I just had like my buckle on. And
right here.
Yeah, I was just straight chilling.
Yeah,
I had no concerns. I wasn't worried about going anywhere.
Yeah.
So she was like, "What? Like, what's going on with this kid? He needs some direction." But other than that, she didn't worry too much.
Oh, but this goes right into your daughter falling asleep, and so she was connecting the two. Like, okay, I remember.
Yeah, she was like, "Oh, that reminds me of the one time I didn't know what was going on."
Oh my God!
So you're getting that treatment second grade.
It's like, still for the viewers to hear Alex being a dad here. It's awesome. Yeah.
So when you hear, that's why, like, how in parent teacher conference in front of you, they say you're not going anywhere.
Oh my God! Well, I think I was removed from the. I mean, I don't think the kids were in it, so I think it was. My parents were really blunt.
Okay.
They didn't sugarcoat things, so it was very. I knew what the next day what was said. I probably went to sleep, and the next morning I heard. But I promise you, listeners, this is going to somewhere great for third grade. But first grade, there was that. Second grade, I just remembered. I just didn't take any shit. So I remember there was. I just remember a very good memory. Somebody put pencil shavings on my head. Okay. Elbowed the guy in the
Let's go.
In the face. Like, that was. I just didn't take any bullies. It was just I was going to get physical.
Okay.
So I think that gave my second grade teacher, Mrs. Boehm, definitely a bad vibe about me.
Oh. So
I didn't let the bullies walk over me.
Yeah. All right.
I was not like the guy in anger management movie.
Yep.
I was not the Adam Sandler.
Yes. You weren't Zen.
I wanted to do it then.
Yeah. All right. So
Goose Fraba.
So third grade. Are we? What are we getting after at that point? Because it seems like we got some highs and we got some lows.
We got some things to conquer.
Yeah.
And third grade was Miss Welter, Katie Welter, who who lives in Batavia, very successful teacher, one of the better human beings, who's made me have confidence in my life early on. And I saw her about a year ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
Got to talk to her, but Miss Lehman just really, you walked into her class as a young third grader.
Yeah.
We always said huge eyes.
Yeah.
Like huge eyes that you can just fall into. Young, I probably at age, I think she was like 30, like the Dixie Chick, Shania Twain.
Okay.
Harry Potter came out that year.
Perfect.
The first book.
Yeah.
And I just felt, she would take kids out for lunch for achievements on the math and science quiz competition. And I think I was just one of her favorites. And I think I needed that after those two. I was one, and it was well known. I was one of her favorites. And third grade, I think first crush.
Yeah.
First time in, what is third grade love?
Right. Right.
But there was the first crush. There was a teacher that really, fucking loved me.
Yeah.
And that it set the stage for the rest of my life. So Miss Welter, mahalo.
So feeling that, like what changed going forward as far as like, was there self-talk was different? Like, how did you carry yourself? Like, what was going on there?
Self-talk was a lot more confident.
Okay.
I think that to have, when you look up to a teacher, especially young, the first time you might like view women like, oh, I might, have a crush on somebody, because I had my first crush then on another classmate.
Yeah.
I think I felt really safe around Mrs. Welter, and I felt that I could be my true authentic self. I can be silly and funny. And I felt like I aged 10 years in that class.
Wow. That's fantastic.
And then a bond that just continued in terms of just every time I saw her in the hall, like, get the LFG of being in elementary school, and somebody that believed in me, and I think that's valuable. And I don't mean to throw the two others under the bus, but I think that's abhorrent to do that to, because to say that to make that justification at age 6. I mean,
well, I think that just goes to show how important it is to provide a space for teachers to where they want and are able to give the best of themselves to students. Because it seems your third grade teacher was available to do that for you. And maybe the second grade teacher just didn't have either the capacity or whatever reason it wasn't working out for her, that you were the one that got her best self. So,
ooh, interesting.
Yeah.
The capacity maybe to have a bigger brain that, I think that's interesting.
Well, and I've had a lot of teachers on here, and a lot of them have a hard time with whatever curriculum they have to teach. And then usually a couple years in, if not the first year, they're not necessarily thrilled with what they have to do as far as teachers. So if you're not feeling great about your job, you're probably not going to give the best to the kids as well.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
and I think maybe being a lower earner and all that, but I think it's also the character, Alex. I think it's the character, and I think Miss Welter was 30, Boehm was upper 60s, low 70s.
Yeah.
You can't change her.
maybe she'd had it. She'd seen a lot of kids, and she's like, this one's not
this one. I can't deal with him. He's going to be playing tennis one day. I can't deal with him.
Yep.
But she lived in my neighborhood, and I remember, my parents, it was all about self-love. So I remember when at the end of second grade, when you went down my street and you turned into Wilson. Yeah. For Batavia people, I would sing a one-liner song, Mrs. Boehm, you're not teaching me anymore.
Hey, there you go, the release. It helped you work through difficulties.
Yes.
As a single child, you're saying that love was, you've mentioned it quite often. How did your parents? Was it just showing you? Was it telling you? How did you feel all that love that you've been able to talk about so far?
Yeah, I think love, expressing love is one of my affirmations, but I think time is another one. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. It's the most badass mom in the universe, and still my best friend. And my dad, very successful what he did and does in sales. My mentor, and tough love, but all structured, strict, all of that, but time. We did things together. We had every family dinner together. My dad's father died at age 11. Wow. In 1958. So there's definitely he saw being a father being very important, and he was and is the best dad. Yeah.
So it was less of like lecturing, and it was more of just showing what they wanted to see.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Showing and being it, and probably getting me involved in piano and tennis. I played tennis as a young kid. Yeah. Little league, every sport, but not forcing. So I mentioned they boasted about me being the best at everything. Yeah. But it was not so many parents who do it toxically. It was, kind of how I see you with your daughter. Yeah. Like it's real love.
Mm-hmm. So where do you think that your parents were able to find that? Because I think that we can only learn from what we see, and nowadays obviously we have a lot more knowledge that's available to us. But where do you think your parents were able to find that love, or being able to show you that as well?
They had a miscarriage before I was born. I was supposed to have a brother, and I think my mom tried for 10 years to have a child and wanted one so bad. I think she were really, really close with the Hungary family, but there's always kind of guilt about her leaving the nest, leaving the family, escape. She's in a free country, making probably much more than they'll ever make in a year, and there's always resentment. So I think they didn't believe she would ever have a kid, and when she had me, there was, from what I understood, there was not a lot of immediate celebration. Right. And I remember from my dad's side of the family, who were, we don't really continue talking with, in Los Angeles, I remember the day I was born, it was stated the day I was born, my dad called, my son was born at 11:30 at night, and I remember it was 9:30 out there, and his brother Don, he's watching I think it was the Rose Bowl, or there was he's not coming to the phone. Game. He's not coming to the phone. They took parenting really seriously. And my dad, I think it was my dad who lost his dad. But the unit of how him and his mom, when he grew up in the 60s in Southern California, I think really cemented that character.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I that's why I like talking about from earliest childhood memories and figuring out how people get to where they are. Because
absolutely,
sometimes you're like, oh, I don't know how you got there. And then you hear the story. It's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And I think anybody that has a miscarriage, it's hard to talk about that, because there's so many women that do, but it's so taboo to talk about it. So I think internally it's very, very hard to open up about those things. When you were playing sports, we'll go middle school.
This is fun.
You said that there wasn't a lot of pressure, but your parents would want you to play all the sports. What were your favorite at those times?
My dad was always first base coach. Okay. And you would always see the parents, the toxic ones in the stands, who just either be using bad language. I remember it when I umpired during high school. Doing the absolute wrong things. My dad would be the first base coach, and or sometimes the first base umpire, and he would treat me just like the other kids, but it was effort. But go get a hit and get on first and home run. But if you run it out and put the effort in, you knew you were going to be a success. And he would always say, like a cat out there, come on, give it your all. Or, with ground balls in baseball, I remember it was not my dad, but it was the coach and all of us together. Dustpan alligator, meaning put the glove down. Dustpan alligator. So it was.
Won't forget that.
Let the ball go. Get hurt in the process. So it was about winning, but it was also about just the love of the game. Yeah. And, I think my dad had a love of baseball growing up, going to Dodgers games when they just moved to LA. Okay. And, I think with him not having a father, like at those formative years when he went to Dodgers games and he went to MLB All-Star games in LA. Okay. He was like, I think that just carried through. Mm-hmm. And my mom was always a spectator in the stands, cheering me on.
So were you always a big baseball fan because your dad was, or how did you pick baseball?
Baseball, because my dad was. Okay. We every season we got involved in a sport for me. So baseball, basketball, and he always coached. Okay. So he would assistant coach. Yeah. And then we would play, baseball, catch outside every day. It was a very involved childhood. You felt loved, and I know that's the theme.
Mm-hmm. But fantastic.
There were sports, there was memories of sitting in the hall as a young kid. That's another early memory. I would be at one end of the hall, my dad would be at the other, and we'd just throw a tennis ball.
Yeah.
I think he would have his one beer of the night, and I would just be, even as a young kid, bounce the ball. And it was just wild, wacky. It was like David Letterman throwing a baseball at the top of his office at Broadway and 53rd in New York. Okay. It was, I mean, we're playing tennis, we're throwing the ball inside the house. Yeah. And then time for supper. Very Leave It to Beaver-esque. Yeah. Minus Wally.
So as far as eating and health went at home, what was the conversation around that? Because it sounds like your mom was a stay-at-home mom. So what did she do most of the cooking? Was your dad grilling? What was going on there?
My dad definitely was the grill master.
Okay.
My mom, I think when I was like somewhere around middle grade school, went back to work at a restaurant job at Lincoln Inn in Batavia. So okay. The memories that I have of that is my dad and I would always go out for dinner several days a week.
Oh, nice.
But my mom did cook. I'd say her cooking has improved drastically. Yeah. But I didn't like eating those days. I was pretty much like this. I didn't like eating. But I think the first time I really ate was eating steak. I think I fell in love with steak. Yeah. And grilling outside was always a weekend fun thing. Yeah.
Was that middle school, high school? You're always super active, or what was that going on?
Probably fifth grade. They didn't lead me. They led me down the healthy eating. Okay. But I think it was probably band. It was fifth grade and sixth grade going on those band field trips. Okay. And pranks. Like I remember, who can eat a whole box of Oreos? That was my first fat moment. Yeah. And I did it. I was like, I ate a whole box. Yeah. But it was not like coming from an unhappiness. It was just,
was.
It just was.
Yeah.
It just happened. It just was and is.
Mm-hmm. So break that down for me, because it sounds like you remembered that pretty early on. Yeah. Box of Oreos. We'll just title it that. Box of Oreos. So break it down. What happened there?
Well, I think one of my best friends growing up, and I'll say names. I don't care. This is going out in the world. Yeah. One of my best friends growing up was a large guy. Yeah. And he ate a lot, and I guess funny comedy. A lot of adventures together, and I think I emulated that. Yeah. But I think I saw it then as you would eat and you would just lose the weight. I never wanted to be big. Yeah. But it was those field trips in sports and band, not just Oreos, but it was eating junk food, but out of a place of adventure and right. But I was also active. I would in tennis we ran suicides and sprints and. So it was I was always active. It was just more along those lines, if that makes sense.
So at what point did you start labeling like the eating actions, either like good versus bad, or when did that conversation start?
You mean in my own self-image?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I never wanted to be like Chris Baldwin, who I speak about. I never wanted to be like him. Okay. I never wanted to go to that, but I thought if I can maybe be like 25%, I can be more of a comedy. And gotcha. I was always the joke man. You remember tennis?
Yeah. The
biggest joy is getting people to laugh.
Absolutely.
And this guy, for all the listeners, has one of the best laughs. When I heard it today, it was like I got transported in the friggin' DeLorean with Doc and Marty back to Coach Coomer days, which we'll get to. But absolutely. I think the comedy, Seth Rogen, kind of a feeling of just being the goofy, wacky. Yeah. But I always thought I can just trim this back. Okay. I was like, I'll do a little bit here, and then and what was the second part of the question?
So so it sounds like when you were eating the Oreos, it wasn't like, hey, I'm making a terrible decision here. Yeah. Like I'm unhappy with how I look, or like this may not be a great decision. When did that kind of start creeping in?
Right to it. I think I went to a wedding with my dad's best friend and his family. Third wedding for him. Yeah. And I remember in the weeks leading up, they lived in Evanston, we lived here. Comments about my weight for the first time were being made. We went to a water park in Aurora, and I remember, got some, like grab my fat, like that, like right here. It was not bad, but that is a memory that like that. I'm so happy that happened. Right. There was that, and then there was, you got a little pudgy there, bud. Yeah. And this is coming from somebody I looked up to as like a, we would go to the museums in Chicago. It would be a 3 times a year, like extended family joint venture. So when I saw somebody I really looked up to and really cared about say things so unsolicited, it really was hurtful. So it was junior year high school.
So
a wedding in the months leading up.
So looking at that statement from that person, where do you think they were coming from? Do you think it was from purely observational? Do you think they were saying it to like, hey, maybe like I can help him realize? Or do you think they were just being a dick? Well, like, what do you think was going on there?
This will get to what later on, but it's a great segue. But I think anybody who says things like that, it's coming from something unresolved, something, we're going deep in the therapy vault, but it's something wrong with them. But as a young high schooler, or even as a mid 25-year-old, you might relate to this. There's times in our lives when those comments, we attach them to our identity.
Oh, absolutely. For me, it was 4th grade. I still remember walking in from recess.
Recess is fun.
Yeah, recess. And Jacob, very skinny. I won't say last names because the last name I have in my head is the wrong one.
Yeah.
But he was a super skinny kid, and like he made a comment about me, and like I took that to heart. And like if I go back and look at photos, I was definitely not like morbidly obese. When I would go get my BMI done, or when I would talk to the doctor, they're like, hey, you're in the obese levels. My hormones and thyroids weren't working correctly and stuff like that. Like I did not look phenomenal, but the way I thought about myself,
you did to me.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. Like the way I thought about myself was so much worse than what I actually looked like in the mirror. And I had for 6th grade basketball or something like that, I got offered to play. No, it wasn't offered. I could have paid to play on a travel basketball team, but they had to shower afterwards. And I was like, Mom and Dad, like, I can't do this. I don't want to have my shirt off for whatever. And this was all purely because of my own self-image, the low confidence. And it's just interesting that usually yourself is like your own harshest critic. And I was always envious of people that may not have felt like they were in the best shape, but they still like felt okay to take their shirts off, or their confidence and things of that nature.
I can totally relate, and I'm sorry for that.
Yeah. Well, and my thing is, if I was not there, like if I didn't have those things happen, I wouldn't be where I am now. And I'm very happy with where I am now. So I'm happy I learned those lessons and had those things happen. But for you, what was the self-talk when you heard those types of things?
And first, to hear about the morbidly, or you didn't say morbid, you said obese, but I'm to look at those guns right now. I mean, and if I might,
they're short, they're small sleeves. They help out.
You did this for the interview. This is all pre.
Yeah, I was doing bicep curls beforehand. Yeah.
1001, 1000 pre-question. What are you most proud about you now from those memories that were hurtful for you? What are you most proud about now, being a father, being a podcaster, being a health coach?
I would say just being able to digest moments would be, I'd say, my best attribute, because I would used to react to things in the way of, this is the truth. And whatever my voice in my head is, whatever the truth is. But that could just be an idea that pops into my head. That opinion I may have is not necessarily me. That's just an idea that I had. So I think through all the lessons that I've learned is that I definitely don't know everything. And I'm seeing things through my point of view. And that doesn't necessarily mean I'm correct in how I'm thinking. And I can usually maneuver to see if I can better think about or process whatever has happened.
Looking back on it, I love that. I really do, dude. That is awesome.
Appreciate it.
I thought you were. I was expecting fatherhood, but you take things for what they are and not worry too much.
And I would say the fatherhood part thing. if you're a parent, you know, and whenever anybody would talk to me about being a parent, they're like, oh, it's the best thing in the world. Like, you just see him, you smile, it's amazing. It's like, and I've had a phenomenal life. Like, beforehand, I always played a bunch of sports, had a bunch of friends, like, great times. And then when people would gush over, like, about having children, I'm like, I don't have that perspective. It doesn't make sense to me that you have this feeling of like, oh, you want to go home and see your kid when you could be going to play volleyball or do this or do that. And then when I had a child, it's like, oh, I know exactly what you loons are talking about. Like these kids are phenomenal. Having a child that you made and get to grow with as well as teach is something that I don't know if it's for everyone, but if everyone wants to give it a shot, it's lovely.
I one day would love to be a dad.
Yeah.
No, 100%. Thank you for jumping off in that segment.
Not a problem.
Please
not
go
a
back.
problem.
You're the host.
Yeah. So as far as the conversations
that's a great perspective.
in your head, someone says, "Hey, you're looking a little pudgy there." Do you go home, write in the journal? Do you scream into a pillow? What's going on?
Scream into a pillow.
Okay.
No. I just think that was funny because that it brings back memories. But no, just I think that goes to, and this will go really deep, but I think that was the first of even some comments in the last 3 years when I lost the weight, and people had stuff to say, and I used to attach it to myself, like people I really cared about. Some acquaintances in Los Angeles. I go out 3 or 4 times a year on solo trips, but I still have dinners with some people.
Yeah.
I think I used to attach that to myself, and I would just shut down.
Yeah.
And then people would give next steps for advice, and I think what hurt the most is when a close friend at the time, or close friends at the time, would seemingly agree with whoever was saying that, or where then I just felt the betrayal.
And what was this? Was this in high school or what?
I think that would be more where people would not, whether it's that person in who said I was pudgy.
Okay.
My parents weren't around that at all, but I just remember it was that gentleman and his son, so he was an only child too.
Gotcha.
3 years ahead of me. So I think when I saw two people kind of seemingly, not one person saying, hey, that's kind of a jerk thing to say. That's our boy. Let's talk about walking. Let's talk about ways to improve.
Yeah.
When you feel two people kind of ganging up on you, I would just shut down, and then I'd just be hurt. I would be hurt that what happened? Why did I feel like I'm such a nice, authentic person?
Yeah. So what did hurt look like for you? Was that like going home and eating? Was that just shutting down and not talking to people, or what did hurt look like for you?
Oh no, and the eating to gain weight was only early 20s, going out to the bars and drinking a lot.
Okay.
That was so that was just over years of early 20s, not having a know where you're going in life, drinking. It was mostly booze and late night snacks. Yeah. But in answer to your immediate question, it was not screaming into a pill. It was just more compartmentalizing.
Gotcha. Okay.
And burying it, and then probably before bed, tears.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't scream into the pillow. I'd cry into the pillow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's back up a hair. When did we meet? Was it summer of freshman year for tennis camp, or what was going on there?
I think it was the blizzard. I think it was we had a Dairy Queen Oreos come back to everything. First of all, Oreo Dairy Queen Blizzard is the best, but we met at freshman year. It was the summer going into freshman year, where we had a summer tennis camp that was the tryouts to become part of the team. If you did well, then you show up for tryouts, but you already kind of got. My dad was like, make the relationships now. Yeah. So he pushed me into that, and you were. I didn't say I had a lot of friends on the tennis team, but you were probably one of the couple that I really not trusted. But I thought Hazeman was just an all around fun, wacky.
I appreciate that.
You always had everybody's back.
Yeah.
There was always something you would say that make me laugh, and vice versa. But also it actually was a really, in retrospect, it was a really close tennis group. Yeah. We all laughed at each other in good ways. We accepted each other for who we were. Yeah.
Well, and looking at the sports that I played on, I feel like the tennis team that we had there there was not a lot of testosterone being thrown around.
I don't think we had a lot then.
Yeah. I don't think there was anybody on the team that was trying to like assert dominance by any means.
No.
So, yeah, there was definitely a lot of fun to be had.
We had first through three singles and first through not singles in relationships. And first through fourth doubles. I made it to fourth doubles. And I don't remember ever being made fun of for that.
Yeah.
I was pretty good. I was not as good as you. Were you first? You were second singles, right?
Freshman.
You and Sutton, right?
Yeah. Well, so freshman year, I was either. I think it was one doubles or two singles, and then sophomore, junior, senior, I was on varsity. But it was always very fun, very enjoyable.
Fun. My biggest memory I think it was you. I remember Sutton Williamson was on our team. We all went, and it was all, way to go, Swenson. And I would be the slowest runner, but it was just a lot of fun. And when we didn't do far travel to meets, but it was just a very fun environment. Yeah. The coach, I think we had Coach Coomer, but then we had
Lau
and McKittrick.
Lau
was just, it's the same thing. He was like, AJ, you're wacky and funny and hilarious, but I'm going to make you a better player.
Right.
And that's how my parents accepted me as always being better. There was never any negative. That's the thing I think of being a good parent. Never any negative talk. Yeah. And it's the time, because I've seen so many parents that are sadly divorced and all that, where sometimes it does work out, but sometimes it's really, really difficult. It's the time. You can never buy back time. Yeah.
Yeah. I was always super excited, like during school, if it wasn't like a super fun class, I always knew that we had practice or like a tournament, and that was always super fun. Looking towards that.
At the end of the day.
Yeah, at the end of the day, it's like this is going to be great. What was your mindset around like sport? Were you super focused at school, or was it just sports, or what was where was your mind during those days?
I think the only class I really, really fell in love with was the 4 years I took Latin.
Okay.
I don't think you took Latin.
I definitely did. I was not great with the languages. I took Spanish 3 years, made it all the way to Spanish 2.
Yeah.
Muy
bien. Muy bien.
My sister had a friend that she went to. She didn't go to Spain. Where'd she go? This is even worse now. But she was very good at speaking Spanish. She was down there as a missionary for a while. Came back, and like she was my Spanish tutor. And she even jokes about it now. Yeah. She's like, "You were terrible."
I don't doubt her.
And it was true as can be. And I got like a C on Spanish too. And my mom's like, "Take it again, get the B. Like it'll look good." Took it again, still got a C. It was
there's nothing helping.
When it came to languages, I didn't immerse myself in it. I would remember something to pass whatever the test that week was. And when it came to the test at the end of the month, I was like, I only remember what the last week was. So my learning was, it just was not conducive to me getting a good grade in that class. So what got you so excited about Latin?
We had a teacher, Gilda Walls, who I've still kept in touch with on Instagram, very similar to Katie Welter. Again, these are the teachers that make differences.
Right.
She challenged me. I was feeling one of her favorites, and it just all-inclusive environment. Pushed me. That was the only class I'd get B's or A's in, or usually A's. If I didn't get an A, she would make sure I got an A the next time.
Okay.
And making me do homework. And I think where so many classes, it was just a joke. It was just, it was time to be silly in class. I think that molded me into the man I am.
Mm-hmm. As far as school went, did you see yourself as a smart child? Did you see yourself as someone that education was important? How did you see school?
I saw school as getting to the next vacation.
Okay.
It was, and I, growing up, we had our Sanibel Captiva Island condo we went to every November for a couple of weeks.
Nice.
I went to Sedona, Arizona since I was a little kid for a couple of weeks in May. So I grew up taking a lot of vacation days, and I would just, that's what I would be most excited for.
Okay.
So excited, like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, school. It's the teachers that I gravitated toward. It's the several friendships that I had, lifelong friendships, but the classes I dreaded, and I my self talk was I wasn't that good. Katie Welter changed that.
Right,
she's the theme of that, but I think she's the first teacher that made me love myself.
Okay,
and being the only student, I know we're going back to third grade, being the only one of two students, me and Mary Wondolowski, I remember to go to win the McDonald's trip. And I just remember, I'm in the back, Mary's in the front, and I'm driving around in the teacher's car, listening to, I think, Shania, and then the Dixie Chicks.
Okay.
And I just found it. Everybody else, you fools are eating in school. I'm out. I'm going to have a Big Mac and large fries. But I knew the teacher liked me. And I think that, and so me and Mary were her favorites.
Yeah. So all the vacations that you went on, what was so enjoyable about those vacations?
I love flying. So that was number one. Looking out the window, flying. I think the destinations, I learned how to swim when I was 4. It was, the ocean was the huge draw. It was each of the nights, always like in Captiva Island, going out to Capanal's, our favorite dockside shrimp, and I could have a soda that night, or I think it was the routine, to be honest. The sun would go down every day at 5:30. In Sedona, it goes down. It's the mountains glow. Like it was, the sunset would be the capstone of the day. And we do so much swimming and walking to the top of the island, or in Sedona hiking, that you went to bed, you slept like a freaking rock star. So it was just excitement, hazement, excitement.
And is this just you, your mom, and your dad?
Yeah, and we, from time to time, a couple times we invited others in the family to come. But it was our own exclusive club, and not coming from good money or anything, but it was just like, it was a lifestyle of just, instead of going to the family reunions every year or every holiday, it was treating ourselves.
Wonderful. Because I feel like for some people, going on those trips aren't necessarily an enjoyable experience for the parents, and sometimes the kids.
I think you're right. I think you hit a nail on that. I think the ones that were not enjoyable was the Hungary trips were all great, but it was growing to Los Angeles with my dad's side of the family, and probably feeling judged or comments, or not getting the invitations why we got there. It was. Gotcha. I think we were so put off by others' behavior that I grew up feeling really confident in, from age 10, cutting people out. Strength in loving yourself enough that you do not allow toxicity.
As far as your parents, did they ever talk about like mental health or how you talk to yourself, or what was that conversation like?
I didn't really experience too much to prompt that conversation. I think it was all about love, and I think it was confidence. And now I might not have had confidence in my body or whatever, but I never had any morsels of no happiness. That would be more in my 20s.
Okay. So junior, senior year, what is our path looking like?
Oh, wow. It was going to a lot of college, going to Illinois State, going to Northern, going to Western Illinois, where I ended up going. And I just love those trips. I love getting up early in the morning, hitting the road, getting a meal on the road, and then figuring out what college. It was that. It was just hating classes. High school, I hated it. I just hated it. It was just, I remember, I couldn't stand it. But just whacking up, just being a goofball in class, and a comedian. And I guess, I had friends who were all about having that image in high school, and look at, masculine. You know, we're seniors. We got to be this image. We have one chance to do it. Yeah. And I wanted to be walking down the hall. You remember me and just you know, cracking jokes, and that's what it was all about for me. So I enjoyed everything but the actual classes.
Yeah. So was it not enjoyable because the class was tough? You didn't understand it, or is just a subject that you're like, this doesn't really mean much to me?
I think except for speech class, except for classes where I can project and I could perform.
Okay.
I mean, like this is why I did that. Not just for you, but like I get to talk.
Yeah.
I love that.
Your wheelhouse.
Yeah, my wheelhouse. And there's, you know, like, you remember Miss Perlman, who was the speech teacher? Okay, yeah. It was those kind where it'd be like, you know, where you had to debate like pro-marijuana, anti-marijuana. And you would be given the obviously for me was the anti because I was pro. Yeah. It was just fun, you know, times where you can express yourself. Being in math and science, and I can just take a nap. I could just, and which I did. I didn't like it, and I did. I think high school in many ways just, you know, my dad also going to North Hollywood High School in the '60s. He always said high school was kind of useless. College you're gonna love. Yeah. Get good grade. It was always A's or B's, but it's just freaking boring. Yeah. And I guess since my dad accepted that, I didn't think any less.
I mean, that's impressive that you're like, hey, I'm going to just fight through this and then get to college. Yeah. So how did you determine where you wanted to go?
Well, I was accepted to Western and Eastern. Okay. And I guess, you know, I originally was going to go to a community college to be close to home, but I wanted it immediately to kind of, you know, get out of my shell. So I chose Western. You know, within the first weekend, it was absolute, you know, ruckus. It was fun. It was absolutely so much fun.
Had you done any drinking before heading to college?
Yeah, definitely. New Year's, and it would be events at the house, supervised. But it would also be having a couple beers with friends behind the movie theater. And, but it went full out in college. It was 18 beer nights and like having 7 or 8 at 7, you know, before going out. Like by this time it would be, and every day had a label. There was Wacky Wednesday, Thirsty Thursday. Yeah. Can we swear on the show?
Absolutely.
Fucked Up Friday. Yeah. Well, I don't know what Saturday was. It was just, and it was fun, you know, and that was alcohol made you feel more confident giving your number to a girl, or that that kind of thing, where I had always been nervous. I always thought, you know, it's someday I'll find the right girl, but I not bad self-talk, just, you know, they're all on a pedestal. Right. Where that I'd be like, yeah, I'm AJ, I'm pretty freaking badass. Yeah. And you want to have a drink, want to dance or whatever, and yeah.
So what were you studying while drinking at that time?
I was broadcaster, so this is partially why I didn't share. This was definitely going to be brought up. Yeah. I was my major was radio broadcasting. Okay. Yeah.
How did you pick that?
I think growing up, my 2 biggest passions were flying, and not just the airlines. Right. You know, not just looking out the window. Okay. Going from 5 miles per hour to you're up in the freaking sky. Okay. I mean, that's like still one of the biggest thrills. Yeah. And I think that, and also audio production, and listening to Dick Biondi and my favorite DJs, and wanting to be that. Okay. I wish high schools taught me there in actual radio. There's not a lot of money in it. Yeah. You know, not what you're doing, podcast, but I'm saying like in small market Iowa radio. Yes. Yeah. You know, we're sitting in a beautiful palace here. Yeah. But that's one thing I wish they would say. Okay, so if you're a lawyer, you're going to make $100,000, and engineer is going to make $200,000. I wish there was, but yeah, radio. So I drank during the night, and I studied radio broadcasting during the day. The other class I really liked was biology. Oh, okay. I thought biology was just really, really cool. Yeah. I love learning about the organs, probably because my organs didn't work that well.
Yeah, no, there you go. When did you start finding out that your organs weren't working?
Oh, yeah, that was a funny segue. Okay. But, you know, it was just more blood work. Was every time I go to the doctor, be like, you know, here's the blood work again. It's the blood pressure was high. The cholesterol was high. I had kind of like heart murmurs.
Okay.
Even back to age 5. So
really,
yeah. But it was all. It was just usually, like an emergency room visit with a couple of days in the hospital. I remember one.
I mean, I feel like that's not like casual. Like people aren't just having that.
No, second year of college, I was in the hospital 3 days for intestine problems.
Okay. So wait, go back to the what was it growing up? Your heart, you would have a heart murmur,
where it made it fluttered a little bit, and it made it, so it checked out. It was nothing. It was just something to kind of be cautious of, and from middle school on, I was heftier. I was a Swenson, like a Hazeman. I was a heftier guy, and that was just consistently, hey, you're kind of on a bad path.
Okay,
you might want to correct some things. And then blood work got worse, and then ER visits and hospital stays as the years went on, and then just going out all the time. That did not help.
What were the doctors saying? Like when you were in college, when you would go and they'd say your blood work wasn't good, or like what was the corrections, or what kind of advice were they giving you?
Work out, steps. Yeah. Do all these things. Your body, your body's a highway, and you're creating potholes. They kept saying the immediate is not going to be. It's not going to kill you, but you're not going to make it to age 40.
Wow.
Or you're. It's going to be a really ragged path after age 40.
Okay.
That was then, and then as it got progressively worse, it was. We'll hope you make it to 40, or it's getting. Yeah, it's been.
Oh damn.
Yeah. So it was. I had to get, in my 20s, had to get I had migraines a lot, so I had to get shots of anti-inflammatory Toradol, which is good in the short term, and in the long term, it depletes your kidneys. You can be on dialysis. Yeah. So it just progressively got worse.
So is that freshman year, sophomore year? When did things start going downhill?
Okay. Not a definitive time, just over time, over those years.
Okay.
Over those years.
When you're hearing those things, and you're like, hey, I'm like, it's college, I'm going to live it up. Like, what was going through your head? Like, oh, should I stop? I shouldn't stop. Let me go have a good time. Like, what was going on there?
It was, let's go have a good time. I was enjoying, being except for the first semester of college, I flunked out. I mean, I didn't get kicked, but it was like you're on academic probation. Gotcha. But other than that, I did pretty well in school. I think it was just going out too often, and I ended up having to drop out sophomore year for about 6 months to go to Waubonsee, and then go back and then absolutely kill it. Yeah. But I think it was just that I was surrounded by really good people, but it was just way too much going out and boozing. Yeah.
So how were you? I feel like it's tough for people to go back and then also, so going back to Waubonsee and then able to go back to a party school and still keep that momentum. Like, how were you able to, one, improve while at Waubonsee, and then also still succeed when you went back to school?
I think a strong foundation of friends. Okay. That those friends for whatever 6 months or 12 months, I would probably once a month, once every 2 months, go down and party with them on the weekends. Yeah. I stayed in touch with them, and I so missed living with these guys. And I mean, I saw Entourage for the first time. I mean, it was always so much fun. Yeah. Thompson 11 was where I lived. 11th floor of Thompson Hall. And then at the townhomes with them at Western in Macomb, Illinois. So I so missed that that I wanted to relive it. And reliving it was going back to reapply and get back in.
Gotcha. So when you were at Waubonsee, what did your day-to-day look like? Were you just going to school? Were you working here? What was going on?
Yeah, day-to-day was working pizza delivery, doing a lot of softball. I played softball in a little intramural league, but that would be going to classes. I was a very good student at Waubonsee. Yeah. I needed to be to get back. But going out a lot there too, you know, being part of the Moose Lodge and, being part of these where it's normal to have 3 or 4 drinks at 2:00 in the afternoon. Yeah. And then deliver pizzas. Yeah. There was a couple of years there. I'm very strict now and for the last 20 years with drinking and driving. But, well, I mean, what's going to happen to me? Yeah. So there was a couple of years there that I even would drink and drive, and it was not smart. But I can look back on it now and laugh.
Yeah. Well, while delivering pizzas, do you have any wild stories from there that you're able to share?
Oh yeah, able to share.
Well, so I have some friends that they were telling me, like, apparently a lot of people have worked at pizza shops, and there's some stories they can share, some not so much.
Wow, I could only envision it. Got to a delivery, a female answered that. Yeah, so I can try to. Yeah, wow, I didn't have any of those. Big tippers.
Okay.
I always viewed pizza delivery as you're gonna maybe make 20 or 30 or 40 a night.
Okay.
Not a lot of money, but when I delivered pizza back at Western at the Domino's there, I was like, you can make $200 a night. It was like, then to me that was like $200,000 a year. That was just like so much money. So depending, I mean, if it was a Domino's thing, it was a lot of money, and that money meant so much.
Yeah. What was your foundation around financial literacy at that point? Like, what were you thinking about when you were getting money? Was it paying back loans, or what were you thinking about?
It was definitely saving, but spending. While saving some, spending a lot on booze and marijuana. Okay, that was definitely a.
What was your introduction into weed?
Ooh, I mean, I think it was always, well, in high school I was really sheltered around it. Don't smoke around the house, but after high school it was seemingly accepted in the house. My family, we never had secrets. It was, we rather have a couple drinks here, have a couple puffs here together. We even would share together. Yeah. And just, I think the worst parents are the ones that lock their kids up. And then I remember a couple of my close friends to this day, when they would go out, it'd be, we'd go out, smoke a couple joints, drive around, come back. I can't be dropped off now. Like, it was so strict that they had to just party. Like, it was like, no, it's accepted here. It should be accepted there. Let's just, it was better parenting. Yeah. Yeah.
So when you say better parenting, as far as why do you think the other parents did the things the way they did it?
I think to remove those toxins. Okay. To to imprint, to not drink, to not do any of that. Yeah. The values and morals that I was brought up with is no drinking and driving, and I know for a couple of years I didn't follow that. Right. But very strong values and morals. Okay. Christian values, and just being a good person, being a good citizen. Yeah.
Yeah. And how would you pick and choose which ones were the ones that you're gonna follow either that day, or were you pretty consistent?
Pretty consistent. Yeah. I knew I was drinking too much, but for the most part, I was, pretty on the right track with that. I just wanted to get through college and get a job in radio and make good money. I thought I was going to be able to make $100,000 right away. Yeah. Sadly, I was mistaken.
So junior, senior year, are you getting internships? What's going on there?
A lot of unpaid radio internships. Okay. I was on the 95 down the river with Scott McKay, getting back to Wade, which I know we'll get to Wade again. Yeah. I was just the funny, goofy AJ the intern. Yeah. I apparently was told I really made an impact I was the best part of that show.
That's awesome.
Which felt good at the time. Yeah. But there was always a lot of cracks about Wade. And, here comes Fatty. They even played like the Twilight Zone, as the intro, because I was not fat, but I was just. So a lot of cracks in my appearance, but I just took it and like, hey, I'm funny, AJ.
Yeah. Happy to be here.
Happy to be here. I'm here. I'm showing up, like here now. Yeah. But we had two very thin lads looking at each other right now.
So what was the conversation, or what's the behind the scenes on that stuff as far as like radio? Is there really a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes? Like what's happening if we're looking at the radio show that you were on?
It was a lot of on-air time. If you were entertaining, you would be funny, you would be on the air. So a lot of on-air time, and just a lot of participating at events, and a lot of late nights and a lot of early mornings. Okay. And for much of those years, for 10 years of those years, 21 to 31, drove a limo. Okay. So that was my primary source of income.
Interesting.
Okay. Limo driver. Yeah.
Yep. So how did you get into limo driving?
Family, traveled a lot. We used a service in St. Charles, and that was my. I always thought, hey, if I could drive to the airport and I could be my own boss and choose my own vacation, I'm all in. Yeah. So I love the limo driving.
What was it enjoyable to chat with people?
Yes.
Did people usually tell you if they wanted to talk, and you could kind of feel if they wanted to talk?
It was always the same, with a couple exceptions. 10%. It was always the same customers. You would see. I even talked with a customer today on Instagram.
Yeah.
It was the same people. They would get to know your story. I would get to know theirs. There was one family that they would send me Christmas cards every year, and
that's great.
one where the wife called me when the husband passed away of cancer and said, Mark just loved that 45 minutes every Friday driving back from O'Hara with you.
Yeah.
And that was one of his biggest memories. And so it was like a confessional. It was like, it was therapy for both.
Yeah.
So, and I got paid to talk.
Yeah.
I got to share my own, but then there would be, from time to time, you would get customers who you get, like a Steve Brady, for instance. I remember him, very awesome guy, but it was great advice. Because I was working, I was starting to learn the sales business with my dad.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I think I got it made. I'm working in the morning. I got this side hustle. And he said, you're never really going to make it if you're a limo driver. You're never really. And I was, at first I was like, Steve, that's soul crushing.
Yeah.
But God bless Steve Brady to say that. He said, you got to kick this. So it was unhealthy sleep and unhealthy life, and more times in the hospital again because of the no sleep. And,
So when you said you wanted to touch back on the weight, at what point were you like, hey, things need to change and they're going to, like, when did that start?
We'll get right to it. It was I think it was January 2020. We're doing it on time.
Oh,
so I can talk freely.
I'm just looking at volume. You're good.
Because I have a lot to get to.
Yeah, no, you're great.
January 2020, I knew I just had to change, and I, COVID in many ways was the biggest gift.
Yeah.
I was not going to go into it with somebody, maybe even like yourself, where I was going to be held accountable. It was, I've always had a dream to be thin. I always had a dream to be thin and love my body. But it was hospital visit after hospital visit and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And again, it was not like, you're going to die tomorrow, you're going to die. But if you're not going to make some immediate radical changes, this is not. So January 2020, started getting 10,000 steps a day, started walking. My first victory with weight was visiting California, visiting my close lifelong friend in Fresno, California. He said, I'm no longer seeing the weight go over the belt. So skinny, that right there, that's the affirmations that I needed. That I'm going to keep going. So it was just walking religiously 3 hours a night. Then it became 20,000 steps and 30,000 steps. Eating better. That's why I hate people say cheat meals. Yeah, you can have a cheat meal, but you can cook your own meals and have fun. And then the initial time I was losing 5 pounds a week, the initial 4 or 5 or 6 months was such a tough change and it's not healthy. It's not what I would do now, but I would, and I got a lot of sleep, I would drink a bottle of wine at probably 11 o'clock at night. And would never do that again, but that was, the bottle of wine is what did it. I did the steps. I wrote down, I wanted to make 6 figures. I wanted to be thin. And I wanted to, 6 figures thin, and I just want to be proud. Okay,
that's huge. So day one, you write that down on a journal?
Yeah.
Okay.
One of these bad boys. Yeah. It's 100,000 thin. I think I put 150 pounds. I lost 147. And I saw my dad as a success story. My dad always taught me in sales, if you're not making $500 a day, you're useless. That, and also if you can't put yourself out there and book an appointment and close a sale, but book an appointment, it's gonna crush your confidence. You're not gonna make it. So
for you, did you write down on the notepad at night, and in the morning you woke up and you're like, hey, today's the day? Like, what was going through your head?
I think I think I just did it.
Okay.
I think, I wrote it down that have it there as a time capsule, but I just did it. I went inward. I went 15 months without speaking to anybody. My dad was and is my sales mentor and manager. More on that in a minute. But I've never needed people, especially at this point in life. I shut out all, and I just said, hey, I just need a little break. And it's still I'm now the happiest I've been, but that was a very happy time to just not talk to anybody for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. So what was were you just at home? Were you working still at 2020? What did the day, I know you said you were walking a bunch and doing all this and eating and whatnot, but were you also working at the same time, or were you just locked down?
I took a Los Angeles trip March 1 of 2020. I remember I was there.
Okay.
And I was losing the weight, as I told you, the Fresno trip, but I remember I would try to do my little Malibu hikes just by myself or with friends, and I couldn't complete them. I was like, I still got so far to go.
Okay.
Flew home, COVID shut everything down, and that allowed, instead of driving in the morning learning shadowing my dad to a client in Rockford and then Ottawa in the afternoon, all this driving that did not allow for much else, everything was Zoom.
Gotcha.
So 2 or 3 hours were opened up every day. Mm-hmm. I decided I was going to work about 10 hours a day because in order to make this goal, I needed to, I wanted to be number one in sales in our region, in which I attained. But I needed 3 hours a day to do this. So from 7 to 10 or sometimes 8 to 11 every night, I'm doing steps.
Yeah. How many times were you like, not today, or it was consistent 100% through?
100%.
Okay.
100%. And this is the bread and butter of this interview. 100%. Yeah. There were obviously people who had shit to say after, who said, "Oh, maybe you could put the weight on," which to me is like put the cancer back on. I mean, that's like the most stupid thing. This was then and is going to be the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I'm not going back. I even thought about it at the time. I literally would rather jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, end my life. Yeah. And while I was starting this, I was thinking, I'll end my life or do this. I have two choices. Yeah. Casket underneath, 6 foot under. So I'm either going to do that or I'll just end it. I remember walking across the St. Charles Route 64 bridge, looking at that river saying, if I don't do this, I'm jumping. Yeah. And that's not from depression. This is just like David Goggins, like, let's fucking go. And we live in such a soft society where we can't say that. But I'm going to either do this or medically I will die soon. Right. Or I'll just make it easy. Yeah. So it was an everyday thing, and the day wasn't complete. Yeah. So there wasn't too much mental conversation as far as it went, getting this stuff done. It was just like, hey, this is what I'm doing in my day, and then I got it done. On to the next. I loved it. Okay. I absolutely adored it, and I saw the results immediately when my friend would say, hey, this is going away. But I didn't get that accountability at all. I got, wow, he's determined for my parents. He's doing well. It was not getting that external. I'm on day 54 of the workout challenge. Yeah, I knew I was going to get there, and I wanted to surprise the world and show the Mrs. Bohms and show the Chris Baldwins that I'm a fucking badass and I'm a champion, and I knew I was going to make it. I just needed to push through. When did you start believing those things that you're saying now? Like, when did that confidence start? Yeah, when did that start becoming part of the picture? June of that year. Okay. June of that year, I saw the results, and I just said, I'm going to fucking go. I will die doing this. Okay. I will end it and see, you can't say that in society now because, not the haters, but the people who say shit to David Goggins or whatever. Oh, there must be depression, or oh, you poor little babies. No, it's. You think Michael Jordan said he's not going to play during the flu game? I mean, you got to have that tough. That doesn't mean, well, I had a bad day, I'm going to kill myself. That's I'm gonna do this, or my life will end. Yeah. Like organ wise, or I'll just end it. Mm-hmm. It was those three scenarios, and I just picked the first one, which is the best one. Well, and I think a lot of that once again comes from perspective, because if we look at, especially people in America, we live very soft lives, and most of our issues revolve around like my boss is maybe being a dick, or like my wife or my kids are kind of annoying. We don't have to worry about where our next meal is going to come from. Like that would be something that's like super tough. We're not having to worry about like the roof over our head for the most part. I would say 90% of the people that have the perspective of like, hey, like be nicer to yourself, like don't go so hard, like things in that nature. I agree, Alex. Yeah. The reality of the situation is we live a pretty safe life, living in America for sure.
Now, there's definitely people I've had on the podcast. I know there's people out there that they have to go downstairs to get water from under the sink and take a shower upstairs. Now, there's definitely those things going on.
Yeah.
And I think rather than always sharing your perspective and pushing your perspective on somebody's life, so if I was commenting on what you're doing, I would more so wonder why or how you got to like what you're doing. So when a lot of people are like, oh, he's doing this in an unhealthy way, or he lost a bunch of weight, but it was because of this reason, like most people that start a journey like that, that's their option. Like you said, you're gonna do this or you're not, and that's it. So there's not a lot of playing around in the head. There's not a lot of options as far as what's gonna happen. So I think that's deep, man.
Yeah. I agree.
And it's tough to hear it from other people because you can't, obviously over Instagram or text or whatever, it's hard to say like, hey, like you're not me. Like you may have an idea or an opinion, but that doesn't make it right.
You're not me.
Well,
and I think that goes to, you can have, instead of internalizing and feeling really bad, and this is a 3-step rule applied to like toxic or narcissistic people. I love me. I'm so don't let them wind you up. And there's not a them, but there's we as I have learned, it's you can't be sensitive in the forest where the animals are hunting. My great friend, shout out to Grant Greischeffer.
That's a really good line.
Grant Greischeffer said that. One of my best friends to this date. Yeah. You can't be sensitive in the forest where the animals are hunting.
Ooh, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. I would say most of us are not in the forest where the animals are hunting. That's great. That's great.
Yeah, and I think along the lines of not. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. And I think when you tell people that the hard truth, and you to speak your story, and it can come across preachy, which is not good. I did that in the beginning. Oh, I'm Mr. Weight Loss. Like, I did the rowing machine. Some people don't like that, but I think also you're going to get the comments, and I think when you respond to them, which I'm a kind person, and the nicest thing I might just say, hey, that's cowardly. I'd say something like that, like. When people see you standing up for yourself for the first time, they're going to become the victim.
So if someone, you mentioned that when the uncle or someone said like, "Hey, you're looking a little pudgy," how would you take that? At like the very beginning of your journey, would you receive that and think about that differently? And
like, thank you for telling me that.
Okay.
Thank you for telling me that, and I'm going to crush this. I'm going to prove you wrong. That was the whole thing about I'm going to be the champion. I'm going to prove all you guys wrong. We pause for restroom break.
Absolutely. Really. Yeah. So we have the weight loss and all that going on. As far as the work stuff goes, what are we selling and who are we selling it to?
Oh, absolutely. And I had been doing this probably... I'm going to
push it just a hair.
Yeah, absolutely. I had been doing this 2018, 2019. My dad was an independent rep for a company called Thomas Net, which is directory advertising for industrial suppliers. Okay. So, the two places industrial and engineers would go would be Google, and then also ThomasNet, which is like the yellow pages, the Bible of suppliers and manufacturers and all that. And so basically, it was selling real estate on websites and SEO and social media, Instagram a little bit, and so my dad was independent sales rep. He was also VP of sales, so he was very successful at it. The company was founded in New York in 1898, but he started in the 80s, VP of sales, team under him. Okay. Sashayed over to being an independent contractor, and it just made a very good living with it. And I had begged him. I remember my mom had begged him too. I just can't keep doing the radio. I went all over Iowa and all of that. But like radio, for instance, I lived in Fort Dodge and Des Moines, met Rick Perry, met Rick Santorum, met some really big, met Hillary Clinton, who was not the friendliest. maybe decided who I voted for in 2016 from that. Yeah. But I really killed it
screw
with
it.
radio.
All right, I'll ask.
Yeah. You were holding something back.
Yeah. Uh-oh. No. So, you meet Hillary Clinton. Just give me the rundown. Are you interviewing her? What's the first point of contact?
I was the morning show news person at a 7-group radio station, and so before this, a 6-group radio station in Rockford, and then in 2014, 2015 moved to a 7-group radio station, Fort Dodge, Des Moines, Ames. Okay. So the main KWMC was the largest. It was the WGN of Iowa. Okay. So I was basically news director, morning show host at the largest group of radio stations in Iowa.
Oh shit, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it was great. It was I wish I could make more than $40,000 then, but in my mid-20s, but all the political stuff came right through town. So my only regret is not meeting, and I'm not pushing anybody, but it would have been fun to meet Donald Trump then. Yeah. But yeah, so I met Rick Perry, was absolutely awesome. When am I going on your morning show next? Like, he was just really, like him or hate him, one of the best politicians, one of the better human beings I met in politics. Okay. Santorum, much taller than me. I remembered very, he was doing it for the airtime, didn't give a shit. But but I appreciated his time. He gave a lot of time. Hillary, I had an interview booked 2 weeks ahead with her team. Yeah. To meet with her at Fruit. It was at a fruit company, Fruit for Yield. Not Fruitful Yield, but it was. I think it was Iowa City Citrus or something, but it was in Des Moines. Gotcha. And she walked out. We had Shepard Smith. We had all the Fox guys. I had my own, much less antiquated version of my audio equipment. And her SUV's here. She's very amicable to the Fox. I don't know. Fox likes her, apparently. She's very amicable to Fox. There was no CNN there, but then there was me. Yeah. And I thought, 25-year-old, what she would think, a good old boy from Iowa, totally stumped me. Very mean. Looked at me. I was like, nope. And walked into her car and drove away. So how does that work? Like, she talks to Fox. They give her a couple questions. Yeah. She responds. Yeah. And is it like the red carpet? I don't know how any of that stuff works. It usually works at different pizza. This is at a fruit place, but usually the political events work around Pizza Ranch or these small towns where locals hang out. Okay. And they canvass and they sit down, they have a meal, and they're ensconced in the people. Okay. With Hillary, it was she spoke at this fruit convention. Okay. It was at a fruit processing plant. Yeah. And I had promised, just like with you tonight, it would be like if I got here to your house and sat down and you looked at me and said, no. Oh, really? Okay. So I had booked a time 2 weeks ahead with her team. Gotcha. All set, all ready to go. Okay. And then she basically, it was about to begin and left. And yeah, I was traumatized. I was so sad. You had questions that you were going to ask her? Oh, some hard-hitting, hard-hitting questions, but also I was looking at it the Rick Perry thing. Right. And Rick Perry was just like, how you doing, brother? Let's have a beer together. Yeah. I wanted to create that connection. Yeah. And, not get a job with her, but I wanted the connection because I looked up to the Clintons then. Yeah. Not as much now, but I was looking to win for my reel, but also win a connection. Yeah. So it was devastating. Was she talking to people 5 yards down from you? Probably where the camera is. Yeah. Okay. And then looked at me and just, it was just it was just second grade all over again. This kid's not. Yeah. It was Mrs. Bohm. It was Mrs. Bohm. And it was very, very, it was traumatizing. So I get back to the station. Everybody had my back. It was beautiful. And some affiliate, I think it was, not Greg Gutfield. It was one of those Fox guys, nationwide, called me, and I had a very big decision to make. I have my own radio, 7 cluster stations. I got to be really careful what I say on this national platform because I don't want to be promoting my brand. Right. So right away, they come in. I think it was Gutfield. It was one of those guys. Michael Coolidge, actually. Okay. He would visit different stations. I shook his hand. Big Fox guy. Mm. So AJ, I heard Hillary, we're not surprised. She's a very mean politician. And so I said, I feel absolutely devastated. Mike, it's, by the way, it's great to be on after Hannity. I love Hannity. Because I was the lead into Sean Hannity. Okay. So I was like, it's great to be on in local Iowa radio after Sean Hannity and after Tucker. But I'm pretty pretty busted up over this right now.
Yeah.
And I just said, like, Hillary, I mean, where is your empathy? How can you? I could have helped you win Iowa. I could have got you the caucuses. Like, what are we doing here? Like, Bill, I think, would have played a saxophone and sat down, and it was horrible. So, the stations had my back for doing that, but then they said, next time, don't go on a national platform. Like, just don't do the interview.
Yeah.
But I felt so good to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what was it like being on national television like that?
It was a call-in radio, so it wasn't on TV, but it was amazing.
Yeah.
It was the feeling of what this is then.
Mm-hmm.
It was a lot of, It was a lot of fun.
My wife, everybody.
Yeah.
So
Mrs. Haseman.
Yeah. You get to call into national radio, and
they called me. Yeah,
they called you, and then at what point were you like, hey, this $40,000 a year isn't doing it for me. I either need to move up, or the sales thing is where I need to go.
It was 1-year contracts.
Okay.
It was you weren't getting a lease on an apartment, so it was just like moving to Ames, moving to Fort Dodge, moving to Quad Cities, moving to Rockford. I went from 20,000 to 40, so it was good money, but it was for the time, but there was no room for growth. It was all short-term 1-year contracts.
Was anybody making a bunch of money at the radio stations?
I'm sitting as an intern with Scott McKay, who was my idol. He still is. I love McKay in the morning, 95.9 The River.
Okay.
And he was like, I'm making $38,000 a year. I have to work at the Mercedes dealership for a weekend event just to help. I mean, the guy works real estate during the day and morning show during the morning.
Really?
These guys, and I'm looking up to these. These guys are living in Geneva. I'm like, these guys have a home. Like, how do you make it? So it just became clear that.
Interesting. I had no idea.
Yeah.
I thought the money was flowing.
If you're at WGN Radio in Chicago, you're making $500 a year. But
that's not bad. Is that just because they have the advertising to be able?
Yeah,
to...
your top 3 market.
Okay.
You're pretty high up.
Okay.
But yeah, so I noticed I can make more money doing the limo, like 800 to 1,000 a week, and for a while it was great.
Not bad.
At that time, 54,000 a year. It was, but I was always brought to, if you're not making 500 a day, you're not. Yeah. So in the beginning, I would, just do telemarketing, calling to book appointments with my dad, and just was just like with the weight loss, was just slipping and falling.
So are we doing cold calls?
Cold calls to company presidents and engineers at like laser cutting, water jet cutting, plastic fabrication cutting, just to book a meeting.
Right.
Just to book a meeting, and you'd either get hung up on or laughed or not get the person. You deal with gatekeepers. But then slowly, like around 2018, early 2019, I started booking appointments and became what my dad is. I mean, the biggest joy was to report the good news.
Okay.
Booked appointment.
Yeah.
Then I get to sit through, shadow the meetings, see him close. And he was very much, create the connection. It would be 20-year relationships. So it would be really close connection. But closing, the art of closing. And the process was so fun. Haseman, it was so much fun.
How excited? So I did door-to-door sales of newspapers, windows. I did some car sales. I was lazy salesman, but anytime I ever did get a sale, it was like on top of the world. So how was it for you closing like legit deals?
Top of the world is the words. Reporting the good. I had my dad as the best sales mentor. Meaning, he would be the one that would say, if you're not booking the appointment, what are you delivering news to me? With weight, because this was all kind of happening in tandem at the same time. Either you're going to be a beached whale or you're going to do it. Like, it was not, oh my God, he lost all. It's like you just walk. Like, it's not rocket science. You always said, we don't need to deal with this therapy babble. It's, he's like, you don't need therapy. You just do it.
Yeah.
Talking to my doctor and talking to therapy helped.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, that was one of the, but I love the beach, or you're going to make it. So that's how you win. And so, it was mountaintop moments, $20,000 sales, $75,000, and then, middle pandemic, from time to time, a customer will want to see you, all right, we're going to put our masks on, we're going to go out and like go to Madison, go to different places. And, sit down with the people during COVID, which was outside of that, I was quarantined completely.
Yeah.
So
what are you selling the ad space?
The ad space. So
gotcha.
let's say you're Hazeman Machine Tool in Minneapolis, Wisconsin. You're not being seen on Google.
Yeah.
Sales are down. Like you may be at say 200,000 annual revenue. We'll make you, and they're getting calls from so many quacks saying they're going to be number one on Google, but they're not even showing up in ThomasNet, which is the number one place where people are going.
Interesting. Okay.
So for their services, so like the people who make the machines so we're not going to them, we're going to the people doing the work.
Right.
They have an opportunity to be in front of the largest audience, and then ipso facto show up on Google. Mm-hmm. The engineers at Thomas would build their websites, to make it more user friendly, and so it was a whole different product line of services. So the wins were amazing. As I'm losing the weight and getting thinner, I'm realizing I'm making more money. Yeah. Became 40% in growth for our Midwest region, and became the number one, like in terms of new business, new growth in the country. And there's, how many different markets for ThomasNet? Right. Yeah. It's lonely at the top. Yeah. It's lonely at the top. It felt great, and it still feels great.
And do you feel that was because you were putting in the 10 hours of just consistency, or why do you feel like you were able to succeed so well?
I think it's you can't succeed. I hate to say it. You can't succeed being overweight. Mm-hmm. You can't succeed when you're not taking care of your body. I do yoga. We'll get to that in a minute. But you cannot succeed if you're not working out every day. With limo for the last 2 or 3 of the 10 years, I was not sleeping well. Mm-hmm. But I was so used to the caffeine ritual and all of that I can drive to the airport and back on 3 hours of sleep. I felt fine. But sleep, Hazeman, never did its deal. Yeah. Now to wake up every morning, I feel great. Mm-hmm. Like, to wake up where, cerebrally your eyes, it's a better than any drug, better than anything in the world. It's the most heavenly feeling. So you sleep,
we'll get you on some new drugs.
There's some upstairs, better than weed. But I think you got to dedicate time every day to fitness. You got to dedicate time every day to your to sleep, obviously, and then it's the hours, and it's the journaling. It's pushing yourself, and that the dream is there. How much do you want it? Are you going to be a beached whale, or are you going to do it?
So you gave yourself the best chance to succeed. There was you took away the things holding you back, and there was a lot less friction for you to reach your goal.
There was no chance that I wouldn't make it.
Okay.
With the weight loss, there was zero thing stopping me, minus a bus hitting me. With sales, I had the best.
Wait, did a bus hit you?
No. Oh, no. Minus a bus hitting.
That one bus.
Minus that one incident. Yeah. But there was nothing going to stop me. Okay. And I didn't have to have the weekly check-ins with friends. Yeah. I have a close 3 or 4 that I'm really close with, but it's really. But somebody who keeps pushing me now. I work a little bit in agency world now. Okay. And the probably the person or the 2 people that I really closest with, lifestyles and all of that. My close friend Emily and her wife Roseanne for short. Emily's participating in a 75 strong competition where it's 2 walks a day, no alcohol for 7. Like, it's really strict. Yeah. And she's doing this now, and that's why I still don't get it. She looks great. Yeah. She doesn't need to do it, but I'm proud of her for. Yeah. But she's pushing me like it's. My feeling is loyalty, trust, and love, and authentic souls only.
Mm-hmm. So when did you start adding in other things or actually before that question?
We're jumping around.
What were you meal prepping for yourself, or would you just cook for yourself every day? Like, what did the nutrition look like?
Oh, my mom taught me a lot about soups. So my mom supplied the soups. So it would be lentil, navy bean, split pea, my favorite, cauliflower and celery. And that's what I can still, maybe you'll be the first person to understand it. Like, I just enjoyed eating with some chicken stock, these soups. Mm-hmm. And then for me, the first things I learned is how to make ground beef tacos and lean beef, eating lamb, eating most of the 80% of the diet was fish, salmon, and you can just enjoy eating and so much of society is, well, you got to have a cheat meal or you're going to, put it back on. Only the weak put it back on. Only the pathetic put it back on. It can be fun.
So as far as the cooking and things of that nature, is this something that you would meal prep? Is this something that just each day you would cook for yourself, or how did that work?
And to go back, I didn't mean I've in a healthy way have gained some weight, back muscle, and all that, and I've seen like close friends put a little bit of weight. I didn't mean. I just meant for people to do this journey and to give it up and put it. I've seen that with not friends, but just on Joe Rogan's show, and I'm just like, are you kidding me? Like, to me, this is my own personal thing. The Fox River jump is better. But in terms of meat, you said with meal prep and all that?
Yeah. So for you, how did you make it so the eating was something that was easy for you to handle? Or it wasn't easy, you just knew you had to do it?
40% of it was, my mom was the biggest inspiration. She during the pandemic, she got shingles and got neurological, like she got really sick herself, was in and out of the ICU. So we banded really close together. My dad got COVID October that year. He almost didn't make. So they began walking every day. My mom lost 40 pounds within like 3 months. So we were all eating healthy together. I worked in sales with my dad, as I still do. And except for my Havanese dog Dante, who's my best friend, it was those are the only two people I was around.
Gotcha.
So we were all doing it healthy together, and we're gonna hit these sales goals. We're gonna stay alive in the family, and I was more caring about them. And we were on a mission. It was a mission, and it was also to try to not get COVID, which was unsuccessful 3 times on that.
As far as going back to the mindset of others and saying like, hey, if you put it back on, I don't understand. Like, where'd that idea come from?
That might be a deep share. You mean like when people said that to me?
No. For you, so you're saying like it doesn't make sense that you can lose it and then put it back on.
Oh,
like where does that come from?
Where that comes from is my coming out thin party, which was May of 2024, where I was doing Instagram posting and all of that, but it actually was first flight after the pandemic, flying to Southern California to our Sedona timeshare. My parents weren't really comfortable flying right then. It was Omicron or whatever. And so I did that. I did that for 2 weeks alone, and then I went to California. I really connect with my dad when I go to California because that's where he's from. And it's these solo trips. It's these going in the cave, David Goggins. But I do a couple of these dinners with close friends I lived with at Western, who I've stayed in touch with, and there's a lot of celebration for how I looked on the first and second day of seeing me and all that. But I was so preachy about working out every day. I got a great sleep. I'm working out. That there was other extended family in this who their initial reaction to me, it's absolutely astonishing. It says more about them. Would be, maybe you have it eating, and I'm so happy the world gets to see this. Because this is so important for people like love and care about. Maybe you have an eating disorder. Maybe like I would drive to the Valley of Los Angeles, and maybe when I would arrive, I said, I had some rough times here growing up, but man, it feels great to be thin or whatever. And maybe you should maybe you have an eating disorder. Maybe, well, what if you put it all back? It was a lot of negativity, toxic, that I took that as my identity. So I feel thin, I feel great, but then I'm just like, why aren't you all either celebrating me or just shutting the fuck up? So that's where all that came from, where it was shockingly to see people who I really cared about take this back. And then obviously I had journaling, therapy. I was doing all of that. But when a small group I was really preachy about it, would say that, I would just, so I just took it really personally until finally I said, this is it. But so it was a lot of unsolicited comments. Oh, maybe you should just put it all up. Like, that's my life, asshole. Like, And I feel more for others who are going through that, not from them. I'm just saying, like, everybody has an opinion.
Yeah.
Do you want to play that Goggins thing right now?
Yeah,
this is a perfect segue. Everybody has an opinion.
I like it.
Ladies and gentlemen, you're about to hear David Goggins. Will we hear it on? Is it going to be on the Bluetooth?
You'll hear it on the podcast. But guys
are fucking hilarious. They are so threatened and jealous and insecure and every word in between all that shit. When I was fat and lazy and insecure, struggling in school, struggling in life, people were giving me all this advice, trying to help me out. Well, I went on the other side of the spectrum. I lost weight, I got in shape, I started studying, I started to become one of the hardest working people out there. And guess what? They still had shit to say. They had shit to say when I was fat. They had shit to say when I lost weight. People don't want to see you better than them. That's what it comes down to. You make them feel good about themselves when you're fat and lazy, and you make them feel like shit when you come from the depths of hell and decide to fucking make it. There's enough food and pie for everybody to eat. Don't hate a motherfucker because he works harder than you. Stay hard.
God, that brings tears here.
Yeah.
That is powerful.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't want to talk about the negative, but there's in different walks of life, there was always some comments, and it's just like, I love what I did, and I was so happy that those comments happened because then there's also the people like my parents who, God damn, you're such an inspiration. My mom lost 40 pounds herself.
Yeah.
We're the weight loss buddies. So I'm really happy for that because then the true authentic people like, my close 4 or 5 friends, Batavia growing up.
Yeah.
And the people like, who I work with in the agency world, Emily and Roseanne, like these people who, you realize who the actual people are.
Yeah.
And then I think some people with rising success and rising health,
Yeah.
you bring out insecurities in people, and you just gotta accept that.
So what are you doing for yourself now as far as you said you threw in yoga? How'd you pick that, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so during this, I still do some work with my dad, but during this, I just realized I was an appointment machine, really good at what I do. Really wanted to start working with some bigger brands. I really wanted to work with Frito-Lay. I wanted to work with some large names. And I learned from a close friend in Los Angeles that agency world is a way to go. Where you got a bunch of creatives, and so I began working with a company in Wisconsin that does social media content.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, so they started with banks and credit unions, and then moved their way up to Johnsonville Sausage, some pretty big brands. And my sweet spot was calling C-suite people, getting them on the phone.
What is C-suite?
C-suite is
I hear about it all the time.
Chief marketing officer,
Gotcha.
your chief it's usually communications or marketing or social.
Okay.
Is kind of, and just getting them on the phone and, hey, we got the credibility. These guys are awesome. And it's always, I know you're probably like the same thing with ThomasNet. I know what are you doing right now, Alex? Well, I'm doing, I'm with X and Z company.
Yeah.
You never knock, I'm sure that's working out great. That's awesome. What are some areas that I can help with you? So it's like that. And it's, again, it's either booking a Zoom or booking a call. Yeah. And it's a team effort. And I learned that I can close pretty well. But yeah, so it was Milwaukee agency, who already had some really big names behind them, but I wanted to grow their portfolio, and I'm doing great.
That's awesome. And how did you decide to, like, what type of other fitness pursuits are you into now?
In the last 18 months through a client that I had in Ottawa, Illinois. Actually, to rewind on that, during the pandemic, we got tired of taking my dad and I got tired of taking our weekly Zooms in 2020 at the house. It was 4 o'clock. It was usually happy hour, not water. We always thought, why are we drinking and working? So we would either go to, we would once a week for a while there, went to Ottawa, Illinois. I don't know why we picked it, but it was a nice little bluff along the Illinois River. Yeah. It was March through September, warm months. Yeah. It was just a cool spot to take us in, just to get out, get a little walk in. So anyway, Ottawa just became the juncture for booking deals, booking sales, and along the way, while I took on this new project, I fell in love with a yoga studio there.
Okay.
Energy Yoga, owned by Kurt and Ross Sesto. Both work in. Well, Kurt works in healthcare. Ross is a flight attendant for Frontier.
Okay.
But really, they have the mentality one of us.
Yeah.
They've helped me with navigating good clients and bad clients, and they always talk about the sniff test. If it passes the sniff test, if you cut into that piece of chicken, how does it look?
Right.
So yoga became added to my routine.
Okay.
Because on these big sales these big trips, I was going to Las Vegas. I'm still doing a lot of traveling to trade shows. The night or two before a trip, I was just all this great sleep that I was having. I was just really panicked.
Yeah.
So I thought, add yoga to the ritual. And I found a really good community with Energy Yoga. There's also Prana Yoga in Geneva here.
Yep.
But I'm sure, have you been there?
I haven't been there. I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. Are you into yoga, Hazeman?
I sometimes do hot yoga. I like to jump around, and consistency in yoga is something that's always chasing that sometimes.
Yeah. But it's not. But what? Are you a walker? Or are you
I would say... So when we went to Bali, I had a yoga instructor. He was focused more on control from outwards in, not necessarily just expanding from the center. He's more of a Ido Portal type of instructor, more of movement and control through areas.
I love it.
So I think yoga for me would be very beneficial in some areas, and then some areas maybe we lift a little bit more, run a little bit more, but at the moment the hours are short.
I know. God, yeah.
So just
and I think, but you still, again, for all the listeners here and all the viewers, you were a heftier, much since the last time I saw you, and I don't know if the shock seeing you was as much seeing me, but we've talked on Instagram, we've talked via text, and you approached me, you saw me running through Batavia, we'll get to that, but I think the shock of two thin people reconnecting.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You've seen the movie Jerry Maguire. With Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
I assume this is what it was going to be. Where you got Bob Costas and you got the guest, and oh Bob, you got it out of me. I promised Jerry I'm going to make it. Show me the money. Yeah. So that's we both got to this point, but no, yoga has been an absolute pleasure. Yeah. I think the big thing with the agency world is, in the beginning, walking into these boardrooms in Milwaukee and Marble Media, I'll say the name.
Okay.
It's a great company. Their CEO, it's Marine Corps owned.
Oh wow.
Their CEO is very brilliant in sales and zero to hero. He was living out of his apartment in 2017. Served 12 years in the Marine Corps. Lost 30 brothers and sisters.
Wow.
Lots of trauma, and his name is Shane, Chyn Krangle. Has become him and CEO David Houston at Markle Media have become very big mentors, and they found me on LinkedIn.
Wow!
In 2021.
Look at that.
And so anyway, the power to walk into a conference room or a boardroom, or walk in, and I wear the shirt tonight because it was my first skinny shirt.
Okay.
It's an amazing feeling, and it just it comes to this day. So adding yoga to the mix was just to calm the nerves going on these trips, and learning what's really right in business. It became kind of like a counseling group where we all kind of at 20 minutes at the end laugh and talk about funny things like this client said this, or navigate this, how to win at the agency, or how to deliver more for Shane and Dave, and really just how to be a good person. Because the one thing they taught me in Ottawa is not one person walking through this room is, or not every one of these people are 100% awesome. And and this is such a trusting town that you have car dealer. We talked about car sales.
Yeah.
There's a car dealer. I think it's it's the Honda. It's Bill Walsh Honda.
Okay.
So they own all the. And I remember there was one person outside of the group so they sold a car without it. The person said, I'm gonna buy the car from somebody.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go home and get the title. Left, took the cash, never came back.
Ooh.
And to me, that would just be pretty elementary. That you follow a set of morals and values. You check your boxes.
Yeah.
But as I learned, in a small town like that and a yoga community like that, where everybody knows each other, when you get somebody who's narcissistic and somebody who would do something like that, it's stunning.
Yeah.
So to have yoga is just, I never went one bad yogi. And I love the poses. It's dropped my blood pressure.
Yeah, that's
it's
great.
made my cholesterol lower. Sleep is even better. It always was during the thin years. But do you have any thoughts on anything else along the yoga lines? Not solicited, but just what are your thoughts on that?
I think it all depends on what your goals are. So even rocket science, like there's paths and ways to get there. So it's pretty clear on what path you need to take to whatever your goal is. So dependent on what your goal is, if you can just break it down into something. Like for you needed better sleep before you had whatever the conference was. You tried out yoga. It worked out for you. That's great. So if you see anything else in your life that you want to improve on, if yoga is not the thing for it, then maybe you sprinkle in a little bit something else. So I think it's just dependent on what those goals are.
Yeah, I think yoga is great. I think have you done cryotherapy?
I did it for my birthday. That was very enjoyable.
You're kidding me.
Yeah.
You did? It was a birthday gift?
Yeah. Jessica got it for me. I think it was like 4 years ago in St. Charles or something. Yeah.
That's where I go 4 days a week now.
Oh, in St. Charles?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's a great place.
Cryo Plus.
Yeah.
Get out.
Yeah.
Christina, who runs it, I'm the owner. Awesome.
Okay.
I try to go. I love the dog, by the way. Oh my God. She was jumping. I just love cryo, and I think that it's really good detox.
Oh, yeah.
And I found it through the most miraculous way when I got really sick recently on a trip.
Yeah.
And I just found I needed to detoxify myself. Got something put in my drink. So I needed to get that out. And I think the doctor and nurse said, as I was throwing up for 36 hours and not being able to, when you get a little bit better, try cryo. It'll get it out for you.
Interesting.
And then I just found cryo yoga. It burns 400 calories a day. I'm going to ask you, Mr. Calorie Man, who not only does this for a living, but you do cryo and you do yoga and you get a little walking every day. Do you think cryo really burns calories like they're saying? Do you believe that? Are you sold on that?
So from what I've heard and seen, a lot of it has to do with the tissue that it's attacking as far as weight loss goes. So there's different types of fat. There's visceral fat that's around your body. If you go get a DEXA scan, like you can see the fat around your organs and stuff like that. That's not the fat you're looking for. Like fat in general is not bad. That's how your body survives. If we don't have fat, like we're gonna have a bad time.
It's like if we don't have sodium, we're gonna have a
salt
seizure.
Salt is good. I have a water bottle around here somewhere that says more salt is good. I don't know of any like wild negative effects of cryotherapy. I do ice baths a fair amount when I can, and I think that's phenomenal. But
do you think it helps sleep?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Why? I know yoga helps sleep because it calms it. Why does cryotherapy? You're in deep sleep. Why does it do so much? I love sleep. So
when are you doing the
cryo?
Yeah.
Usually I usually do it in lieu of lunch. So I do it like at noon. And you walk out of energized, like you can climb the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's great for sleep at night.
Yeah. So from what I know is generally when you are, you can't fall asleep with your body at a certain temperature. I think whatever the number is, you recalled some dates that were phenomenal. I'm more of a generalist. Like I remember the information, but the being able to regulate your body and being able to change temperatures as needed is important. So, an example, when you do sauna, your body is going to be better at cooling off. So you actually get better at sweating. So if it's just you're seeing improvement from the body. So as I know, as you fall asleep, your body temperature is lowering. So I don't know if doing the cryotherapy is improving your body's ability to do that as far as get into deep sleep, or whatever it releases. I haven't seen anything with that. I know like with warm baths before you go to bed helps because your body is like, hey, the bath is warming me up for me, so I don't have to do the work. So as you get into bed, your body temperature is going to be dropping to get used to that sleep. So I don't know if the cryotherapy helps your body be more efficient at that. That's the only thing that I can think of at the moment, but I haven't looked into the cryotherapy and sleep
Absolutely.
thing.
No, I think I think you gave a lot of insight and wisdom there. I think and alcohol is not, that's why I don't like alcohol is not good for sleep. But like March and April of, as I'm 5 pounds a week, to get through that hump in the beginning, to drink a bottle of wine a night, which is not advisable by any doctors or by me. I still was seeing sleep improvements compared with Fat Limo AJ. I was still seeing, and I don't know if you would, even if you're losing 10, or let's say you lost 40 of the 150. Do you really believe that even while drinking a little bit, like 30 or 40 pounds is immediately going to help your sleep, like even in that early stage?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, be sure more of a
well, I would say
I wasn't here, but any
improvement in your overall health is going to be putting less stress on your body. So it doesn't have to work as hard. It's going to be, just imagine wearing a weight vest all day. The weight that it's going to be putting on your joints and your body and your organs just have to work harder. The moment, just say somebody's walking on a flat path and then somebody's working at a steady incline, and then you both get to sit down. One person's going to feel like, oh, wow, this was phenomenal. And the other person's like, oh, this is just normal. So as you're taking off 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 15 pounds, 20 pounds, all that is you're going to find that you're going to be feeling so much better. But it's hard to notice it when you're in the moment because that's just the norm.
I see. Interesting. Yeah. But it's already market improved. So you're like, okay, this is better than this. And that, okay, I see. Yeah. And I think that's some wisdom for, I think that's some wisdom for people trying to do like a large amount of weight loss to not have the check-ins. Like you got to have that. But maybe you were right saying too, some people do need that. So I'm deviated from that. But I think if you can say I'm going to do this for 12 months and then I'm going to keep it for the rest of my life. Do you subscribe to that, or do you subscribe more to, well, you got to have the cheat meal, or you got to, because I do love some snacks. But do you subscribe to enjoying healthy eating?
I think it is.
Do you think my story is unique, or
I think so. Similar to Goggins, if you listen to his podcast or his book, he'll say, hey, this is what I did. Don't do it. I would have done that way. Screw it. You did it this way. This is what worked for me. If the other way would have worked or the other way was better, like, hey, yeah, you can give that a shot, but this is the way you did it.
Yeah.
So when Goggins says, oh, write this down, do this, do that, like, yeah, he has an idea that might work better because he thought of it, but what worked for him is what he did.
Absolutely.
So you can give advice on an opinion you have on how something might work, or you can tell someone, hey, this is what I did. This is how it worked for me. Here's an opinion on how you could do it better, but this is what I did.
Yeah.
So when you say, like, no cheat meal or no this or no that, like that is an opinion that you have that it might be better, but what you did worked. So
this is what 3 years ago AJ needed to hear.
Yeah.
Really, because when you get you might want to, there was always the risk of putting. People don't understand that you did this in a certain way. It's like it's a mission statement.
Well, if we look at any diet that works, it's because you're in a calorie deficit. Mm-hmm. But the people that you see that did a program, they're in your situation to where they're a small percentage of the people that were able to stay consistent for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. And then they're like, hey, it was this program. No, it was you being able to stay in a calorie deficit and figure out how to keep going. It didn't matter what the issue is. I'm sure you probably had to fly some places. I'm sure you had some bad days, but you kept going. If you're able to consistently do something for 18 months, it doesn't have to be 100%. It could be 90, it could be 80, whatever it is, but consistently improving, you're going to get to wherever you want to get. So for me and people with ADHD, I love to use it as a crutch.
I have ADD. Yeah. Or Concerta.
Yeah. I would say I would beat myself up. And if I wasn't 100% with something, I'd be like, screw it. Like, I'm just going to, I'll start again later. And then I would binge or whatever it is. And there is a lot of disordered eating ideas around it, but I wasn't even in bad shape. Like I was a CrossFit coach. I was deadlifting 450, a huge back squat. I was running a 5-minute mile, but I still had the mindset of like, I needed to be perfect with my eating. Mm-hmm. We're not, it's just the idea of it, of saying, when I talk to somebody, this is what they should do. It's like, hey, this is what I did. I have some opinions on how I think you could do it, but this is what I did. Mm-hmm. So I try not to preach and saying this is the one and only way to do it, because most of the people that have success didn't just listen to a podcast and follow 100% of what the person said, because I think that's an easy way to be like, to come up with a goal. Is like, I listened to Huberman. He gave me this 20-point plan to improve my life, and I didn't follow it 100%. So after the first 6 days, like, I'm not going to do it anymore. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the people that I have on here, such as yourself, you set a goal, you wrote it down, and it's 18 months later, here we are. 4 years later, like, here we are. This is what your lifestyle is. So I think that's more important, working towards that lifestyle.
I think was there a time that, how did you get from Haseman, who was the tennis Haseman, there was a time, was there an 18-month period for you? How did you lose how did Fat Haseman die?
So for me, this podcast is going to take a hot minute. I'm going to make sure my wife's not mad at me. There's Dave Coggins.
How are we? Can you edit it out if I ask a question off the podcast in terms of time?
We're good on time. It's 9:20 right now. You gotta go soon.
Oh no. I just was wondering. I don't want to talk if I'm keeping her up.
No. We'll finish with this. We'll get a part 2 in after if we need to.
Could we?
Yeah. Absolutely. So for me, I was in junior year. I was in my therapist's office. My parents were divorced, so I was always going through therapists.
I love that.
I told her that I wanted like a fresh start. I had a lot of anxiety around like classes or homework or whatever it was. I was just like, it'd be great.
Of college?
No, this is high school. So junior year of high school.
Damn.
Then I'm like, like a fresh start would be nice, like run away or whatever. I don't remember 100% was what I was told, because this is not 20 years ago, like 15 years ago. But the woman's like, hey, can I call your mom in and tell her this? So she calls her in and says, hey, I think your son needs to go to inpatient therapy for suicidal ideation. I don't recall saying anything. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. but this is where we're headed.
What is inpatient?
Inpatient means you're in the hospital 24/7, like you can't get watched. So what they said was, hey, you need to go home with him, make sure he doesn't do anything. You can go try outpatient and see what the doctors say. So for a whole trimester of high school, I was in outpatient therapy at CDH. My grandma would drive me, or someone would drive me there. I'd be there for like whatever the school period was, and then someone would drive me home because I wasn't allowed to drive. They thought I might just like drive away, drive into a train, whatever it was. Apparently, if suicidal ideation is what you've been told, you can't do anything alone.
So all the stuff I talked about would be bad then.
They would not see that as a good conversation.
I'm sorry for you.
No,
what you went
no,
through.
No,
not for that.
No,
but I'm sorry for what you went through. Like,
hey, it got me to where I am. Yeah. So I was on, they just started throwing a bunch of drugs at me. They're like, oh, try this, try this, try this. And long story medium, I was working out with my uncle. And at this point with ADHD, like your ideas just run rampant. So I was told that I was thinking about killing myself. So for an extended period of time, that was what was running through my head. Never once did it cross my mind of actually doing about it. Yeah, I thought about it all the time because that's what I was told. I was in high school. All the professionals are telling me this is my diagnosis. Yeah, I gotta listen to the people in the coats. And then as I'm going to get water, I'm like, hey, like this is just a thought. This is just an idea. So at that point, that's where I started figuring out that like, hey, just because I say something in my head doesn't really make it true. And then from that point, there was less of a worry about like perfection or doing something right or the negative idea about the body. But also the whole weight loss thing was my thyroid didn't work properly for like a whole year in middle school. I was 5'4". I stopped growing. So they're like, hey, like your thyroid's not working. Your numbers are astronomically low. Like we're barely getting any readings here. So I was on HGH until like senior year of high school. And like I worked out 8 hours a day in the summer, could not lose the weight. I'd wake up, go to cross country with the high school team, and then I'd go to tennis, and then I would go to soccer, basketball, and then soccer, and then at night I would play for the high school team on like Tuesdays or Thursdays. You would think at some point like this kid's jacked. Not the issue. Thyroid wasn't working great. So got that stuff all solved. The whole mental stuff was finally in line. And then as far as like finding fitness went, we're really trying to speed this up. I was playing.
This is therapy for us both.
I was playing competitive table tennis at the time. And then my girlfriend was giving me shit. So I was like, okay, I'll go play rugby.
Your wife?
No. This was like 10 years ago. So this was right after high school. So I started playing rugby and they're like, hey, you're kind of skinny fat. And I'm like, I know. Come try this thing called CrossFit. So I've been doing that for on off for probably the last like 7-8 years. And
CrossFit,
yeah,
wow.
So that's been something. But also I play indoor soccer, basketball, tennis. I haven't played a lot of tennis lately. Volleyball. Hey, I'm down. I'm down.
Vaughn Athletic Center. I'm there every day.
I'm in.
Yeah.
So for me, the working out part has always been something that has just been a lifestyle part. My health has been, or just like the aesthetics, like skinny or whatever it is, has always been an idea that it may or may not be what is accurately portrayed outwardly. So I'd say a lot of my struggles have been with how I look at myself as opposed to what I really look like, I would say. Because like I've had, we'll generously say a 4-pack for maybe 5-6 years. And like I have some images when my wife gave birth where I didn't work out 3 times a day, where I lost that 4-pack, but it came back pretty quickly. But my mindset sometimes was still like, oh, hey, like you're not eating perfect, therefore it's an issue. So it's a constant struggle that like hearing nice things from you, like even in high school, you're like, hey, looked good in high school. And like now, like it's always nice to hear. So it's good to say it to yourself as well.
You were always kind to me.
Yeah.
We were on the tennis court bros. I number one was we're our own worst critics, so I already put you on ahead of me.
Yeah.
But also you're somebody that I forged a relationship with then, and then now it's just the aha that this is Hazeman. Look at him now.
Yeah.
But I think wow, I'm so sorry that you went through that. And
I'm happy I went through it. If I didn't go through it, probably would not be here.
Wow. You really think that?
Well, no. Not in this situation.
No. But
I'm very happy with my life now.
Yeah, no, I'm same. Yeah. I'm the pinnacle, and I'm
Yeah.
I'm the happiest I've ever been. Walk in places with confidence.
Yeah.
Dating with confidence. Again, I always put the girl on the pedestal before, like, a couple of dates would go well, and then I'd just be like, if this doesn't work out, it's me. No, it's like trying on clothes. Like, this is not, I wish this person well, but wait to, you know what I mean? Like, it's not, so that's that, and then, to not just internalize what people say. Let them say whatever. It's obviously something on them. And then I think, I'm sure you really believe in surrounding yourself around good people.
Yeah.
And then what was the other one I was going to say? Yeah, I think that whole thing is taboo about, well, I'm either going to die, I'm going to make this, I'm going to jump. Those were motivational tactics.
Absolutely.
I probably would have done it if I didn't. But this whole thing where how many of us have not been depressed? I mean, haven't we ever had low points? Like, so I'm not sure with what you went through, inpatient.
Right.
You had a rough time. Yeah. Like, Hazeman, you've always been bubbly and cheerful.
Well, that was one thing that the therapist said is like, this is one of the happiest depressed kids I ever met. I'm like, really? Maybe that's not the issue.
Did you ever say that, hey, this is not necessary? Like, guys.
I don't think I spoke out or thought that like doctors could be incorrect for an extended period of my life. So went through a lot of stuff as a kid, just like health things, and like what they said was the truth. So like that's just what I assumed for an extended period of time. But we'll definitely get into part 2. But the last 2 questions, we'll finish up with these. What's your definition of health? Not necessarily the dictionary definition, but what is health to you?
What is health?
Yeah.
What is health is, the 3 pillars: loyalty, trust, and love. Only surrounding yourself around people that are along with your, some people are in it for a season or a reason. So, surrounding yourself with like in the forest where the animals are hunting. My close friend Grant, or as I mentioned, the 2 people I work with closely on the brand side with, CPG brands, Emily and Roseanne. Like these are good human beings, but it's also sleeping every day, working out every day, and put 10 hours in to give your work your all. Give yourself a fighting chance by not losing no more than a day on your workout. That's why with my friend Emily's 75 Strong, which I know you've heard about, I love that, where we had a couple of Milwaukee trips recently, whereas, I got to do a workout, I got to do a walk before work, I'll fit you in for the after dinner. It's like, fuck yeah. So you need to do the 75 Strong mentality. You need to tune out all the people who, I know she's got a lot. Well, we can't go to dinner. You can't have a drink. And it's sleep, good sleep, working out, and putting a lot into your work that you love. And maintenance, in one word to sum that question up, maintenance. Are you going to do something for life, or,
Fantastic. And then what's something from your life that people listening to the podcast would be able to take away as a positive?
You mean from all the questions, or like,
just anything from your life that you feel like the people listening would be able to take away as a positive?
I'm cautiously to answer that, because I was preachy early on in this, and I don't want to come across as preachy. Even my dad said, you look like a fucking boss. You're awesome, but people don't give a shit about your vacation. They don't give a shit about your weight loss. And, by the way, with your weight loss, people are going to actually feel they're not going to look down on you, but you're going to make people, you're going to just piss people off. Mm-hmm. So I think the advice to myself going into ThomasNet and industrials and working with industrial companies where you're really close with people for 3, 4, 5+ years, and with the brand side, don't need to share everything. You share somebody like you or close friends or whatever. You share with with your close circle, but I was leading with that all the time. People don't need that. And then the other thing is, just be happy. And so the question was answering, basically, what is somebody can take away from you? Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty much it. Just being your authentic self and give yourself a cry every day. Give yourself a laugh every day. Do what Jimmy V said: laugh, cry, and think every day. And then have a sales manager like your dad who says you're a beached whale. Have your mom who loses weight along with you. Yeah. Who helps you cook and helps you figure things out and is your best friend. Have a dog like you have as a best friend, and really don't quality over quantity. Mm-hmm. So can I do a quick shout out?
Absolutely.
Shout out
away.
Just shout out to my awesome dad, Larry, my mom, Judith, my dog, Dante, as I quoted, the forest where the animals are hunting, Grant, who I wasn't able to complete a Malibu hike with when I was fat, and now we do it all the time now. And I mentioned Emily and Roe, who I work with, and my close friend Parker. You remember Parker Adamski from school?
Yeah.
Parker Adamski, going to his wedding later this year.
Awesome.
And just, it's so integral to have your lifelong friends, like the really small, but the lifelong who, your ride or dies. Mm-hmm. So, I think I'm not leaving anybody out there. And then obviously Shane Krangle and Dave Houston at Margle, and I guess the last one would be Nick Graham at ThomasNet. Nick Graham, you were awesome. And love and hearts to everybody listening. And you, my friend.
Hey, absolutely. Thanks so much for coming on the podcast.
Absolutely. Part 2.